Malaria is a parasitic infection and it's caused by a protozoa parasite. I'll describe what that is in a little bit, but what malaria does is it destroys red blood cells over time. That's essentially what malaria is. To understand malaria, we really need to understand how it spreads. So malaria is transmitted through mosquitoes, and it's specifically through something called a female Anopheles mosquitoes. And these mosquitoes act as vectors, meaning that they carry the protozoa microbe that causes malaria. So if you just have a regular female mosquito and it bites you and it's not infected, nothing is going to happen. But the mosquito acts as a vector and it can only infect you if the mosquito itself is infected or is carrying the protozoa. So that's called a vector of disease. The reason why only female mosquitoes do this is because they're the ones that bite humans and they need blood proteins to produce their eggs. Male mosquitoes feed on plant nectars. That's why the female Anopheles mosquito is the vector. The reason why also malaria is common in tropical and subtropical regions is because of the mosquito. So these regions are nice and warm and there's a lot of standing water, and the temperature is important because mosquitoes like and reproduce in these warm temperatures. There's also a lot of standing water in a lot of these areas. So standing water, whether it's from rainfall or poor sanitation system, provides these essential breeding sites for mosquitoes to lay their eggs. This is why malaria transmission goes up in rainy seasons and in areas where you have poor infrastructure. So the parasite that causes malaria belongs to a group called protozoa, to the genus Plasmodium. And there's something interesting about protozoa, that's the microbe that's in the mosquito, is these protozoa are made up of eukaryotic cells. Why does this matter? The reason why this matters is human cells were made up of eukaryotic cells as well. And if a mosquito infects you and then the protozoa is in you, it's eukaryotic, you're eukaryotic. It's really hard to create a drug that will hurt the protozoa without hurting you because their cell structure is similar to your own cell structure. So that's something that's important. So protozoa malaria, it's not caused by bacteria, it's not caused by viruses, it's caused by mosquitoes that act as vectors carrying the Plasmodium protozoa. So when an infected mosquito bites a person, it injects the malaria parasites into their blood. What happens next is you have this crazy parasite invasion, and it occurs in two stages. The first stage is the liver phase. So the parasites go to your liver, and when they're in your liver, they start making a lot of copies of themselves. And so these parasites begin this multiplication process that is silent, meaning that during this time, the person doesn't have any symptoms. So over about 1 to 2 weeks, each parasite produces thousands of new parasites in the liver, and your liver acts as this factory, allowing the parasites to multiply before attacking your red blood cells. There's different species of Plasmodium. Some of them can stay dormant in your liver, and these are kind of like sleeping parasites, and then they get reactivated years later. So that's why it's also been really hard to completely eliminate malaria. A lot of times from people's bodies, it's hard. So back to the liver stage. So when the liver stage parasites are done multiplying, they burst out of your liver and they enter your blood, and they begin the blood stage of malaria. And this is when the real damage starts. Each parasite invades a red blood cell and it produces a lot more parasites. And after about like 2 to 3 days, these parasites burst out of our red blood cells and they destroy it. And each parasite invades other red blood cells. So over time, your red blood cell count is going down. And that is basically essentially one type of anemia. So this destruction of red blood cells has different consequences. One of them is anemia, because your body can't produce new red blood cells fast enough to replace the destroyed old ones. Another thing is infected red blood cells become sticky and they can clump together, and this can block small blood vessels. This is very dangerous when it happens in organs like your brain or other organs. This can cause cerebral malaria, which is a very serious complication. When this happens in other organs, it can cause kidney failure and a lot of other things because you don't want this stickiness. Another thing is each time the parasite bursts from red blood cells, they release a lot of substances, pro-inflammatory chemicals that cause a lot of inflammation, which is a hallmark of many different infections and disease. So there's different species of Plasmodium, which is a protozoa, which is eukaryotic, that causes malaria. There's 5 species of Plasmodium, and understanding them a little bit is important.